All right. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be giving you a little workshop on an introduction to NFTs. I'm sure you've all heard of them so far after the big, past few months that NFTs have had. Let's get into it. And starting off, we're going to talk about what is an NFT. So NFT stands for Non-Fungible Token. This means that it's a unique cryptographic token that cannot be replicated. We have ERC20 protocol, in which you can create tokens that can be replicated. You can have a bunch of these different Uniswaps and SushiSwap tokens, and SushiSwap is always going to be a one-to-one trade with SushiSwap, and Uniswap is always going to be a one-to-one trade with Uniswap, no matter what their USD value might be. But this is not the case with NFTs. NFTs can be used to represent real-world items such as artwork, real estate, identities, and more. I've also seen them be used to represent domains, which is something pretty rare. You can use them to replace your Ethereum domain and have people send Ethereum straight to like a name address instead. And NFTs can be exchanged or traded for other NFTs or currencies. So if you're on a marketplace, they may have their own specific currency for you to use, or you'll just be using ethers, and then you can maybe trade with a friend, offer to trade with a friend. The next we want to talk about why use NFTs. So with NFTs, you can use them to fractionize physical assets such as real estate and art. So ownership can be kind of a finicky thing, IRL, in terms of real estate and art at times. It can lead to a lot of disagreements. But with NFTs, it can simplify the fractionization of it, just like how crypto is simplifying the fractionization of money in general. You can also use NFTs to create new markets, which we'll be looking at in a bit with Rarible and other NFT marketplaces, and use it as a form of investment. Like I know I had a friend who bought those Topps baseball NFTs earlier. She spent like $10 on them, and then like a few months later, she was able to sell them back for around like $1,000 in profit. You can also use NFTs to create digital collectibles and publish them in a series. So there's little collectible games and stuff that people have, or even like video game type collectibles. And people publish art series with them, which we'll also see in a bit. And NFTs can also be used in ticketing systems to prevent scalping. So something interesting here is we got Yellowheart.io, a ticket vendor that recently came out that actually uses NFTs. It can help ensure authentication of digital tickets, and vendors can actually control how tickets are consumed and resold. So this could completely kill the scalping industry as we know it if this gets big enough. Next, we're going to look at some current notable NFT examples. So first we got CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties is an NFT trading marketplace where people can purchase and own these little collectible cats. They can breed them with each other, send them between each other, etc., etc. They spend big money on these, but still a pretty fun use of the system, and one of the first. There's also art minting sites and selling sites like Rarible. This is Rarible. As you can see, people will post their art NFTs and they can bid on them, usually in ethers, though people can also sell them in a Rarible's own token on here. Our first big example of a collection is this, collections up here at the top. Here's Chimoto's art NFT collection. I'm not sure if he was selling these before he passed away, or if this is his estate or somebody in his family or a friend, but yeah. And people have been bidding all on the NFTs in this collection. $100 Tupac and Biggie Smalls NFTs. And then another example is virtual worlds like CryptoVoxels and Decentraland. So Decentraland is very similar to I don't know if anybody here has ever seen this or looked at it, but Second Life, where people can create their own assets and can create their own land to sell and trade on Decentraland's own marketplace for their mana cryptocurrency that they have. See they have wearables.
And someone was actually showing me a demo of one time we were on Discord, and it was like they were showcasing a museum for, I think, African art. And in order to get into the museum in the game, they had to have a certain NFT in their wallet to grant access in the game. So it's like it would look like an unlocked level. So this kind of had potential for authentication within the virtual world and building complex games on top of that. Yes, I just want to add that.
Well, that's pretty neat. I had actually never heard about that. But yeah, you can also buy names. Like people can just hold names and sell them for a certain amount of mana if they so feel like it. Oh gosh, Fauci lied. Okay. Then to that we've got the rise of NFTs. Talk about the rise of NFTs for a bit. So actually, the advent of CryptoKitties back in 2017 was the first big time, the first time NFTs got big. And just a few days after its launch, they had traded like millions worth of dollars in these little CryptoKitties. And they had slowed the Ethereum network down to a point where the creator, the deployer of the contract, decided to raise the birthing fee on the contract from what was it, from 1 penny to 2 penny. And then, of course, we all know about the 2020 to 2021 art NFT rush that recently happened, end of last year, start of this year, where we had people like Mike Beeple. Here's some works from his collection, selling NFTs, art NFTs. I know Mike Beeple apparently sold one of his NFTs for like 69 million. Of course, there's OpenSea, a little interesting story I have from there. You may or may not have heard of Takashi Murakami, guy who does a lot of the art for Kanye West. He recently filed for bankruptcy and decided to get into NFTs to try and make up for that. He had about $10,000 worth of bids just on the stuff in his collections before he decided to take it all down because he kind of felt he wanted to do more research on whether to use ERC721 or ERC1155 protocol. So he took it down, put up the "We'll be back soon" message, and called it on that. And then, of course, there was the Jack Dorsey tweet. In the middle of this rush, I remember I was on Scent one day just browsing, and I saw apparently Jack Dorsey had minted the first tweet ever as an NFT and was selling it. And apparently it eventually sold for 2.9 million in US dollars. And then there's Origin Protocol. So Origin Protocol is this big NFT exchange that they're trying to get on the ground. As you can see, it's sponsored by some pretty big names: Brave, Jake Paul, Charlie Bitme. I think he sold his NFT on here. And I know Paris Hilton is also working with them, and she sold her NFT on here. Her little Among Us sussy NFT that she was selling. And then there's also to look at NFTs in gaming, which we'll talk a little bit more in a bit. There's Axie Infinity, which I thought was pretty interesting. This is Axie. So it's this marketplace. It's this Pokemon type game where, much like CryptoKitties, you can collect and breed these little creatures. But there's also a game on the front end to this that you can play with your little NFT creatures. And as you can see, in 24 hours alone, there's been like a volume of 3 million ethers, $3 million worth of ether moved just on this little exchange on its own. And then also there's Guys Unchained, which Guys Unchained, if you like Hearthstone, then this is one for you to look at. Guys Unchained is a Hearthstone type game. I played a little bit of it. It plays exactly like Hearthstone, where you can collect and trade these little cards. You can buy packs. Not sure if you can get ones this rare and valuable right up front, but yeah. Moving along, I'd like to talk about Immutable X, which is actually what blockchain was built. What Guys Unchained is built on. Immutable X is an open source protocol that allows anyone to develop their own decentralized marketplace, blockchain-based games, and various other decentralized applications, facilitating instant trades with zero gas fees. And it's the first layer 2 use of NFTs on Ethereum. However, currently, they're still kind of in a closed beta type situation, so they only really have Guys Unchained, but they do plan on supporting more in the future. This is their website. If you ever want to take a look on here, they have where you can message them.
They're using what's the layer 2? Are they using optimistic rollups? Are they using what are they using?
I think it said something about a ZK rollups. Let me see. FAQ.
Yeah, and I think Unifty was using a layer 2. I don't know. Last time I was checking, yeah, Unifty was on, I think, also rollups, but I don't know which one came first. But yeah, and also something I want to iterate is that kind of what we mentioned yesterday is the more complex the transaction, the more the more gas fees it costs. So when something's like on Ethereum, for even something like Binance Smart Chain, where I was spending like 10 cents per transaction, when I was launching an NFT on BakerySwap, it cost like $6, which is like showing that like the gas fees compounded. So for even launching an NFT, and especially on Ethereum, especially when you need to have a lot of clout for artists to even sell it on there, a lot of times it's hard to break even given the current gas fees. Otherwise, it would just kind of be simple to put as much art just to have it on there, like putting art on Instagram to take up that real estate. But NFTs are a huge consideration on Ethereum. So you just want to add that.
All right, yeah. And then also another thing I want to talk about is Engine, which Engine is apparently a cryptocurrency, a token built on Ethereum's blockchain where NFTs are, or Engine itself is infused into the NFTs in the minting process. Every Engine NFT can be melted back into coin, however, and the creators of Engine actually also created the ERC721 protocol for their gaming ecosystem that they wanted to make. Certain games may have items that actually can work across games as well. And an example of some of their games are Dissolution, Nine Lives Arena, and Lost Relics, which I'll get into later. And this is their website where they kind of explain their whole product. But yeah. And moving on, we're going to start getting into a little bit of the more detailed stuff, the minting and burning process. So the minting function allows you to create an NFT based on provided resources and place it on the blockchain. Generally, when something's on the blockchain, you can't take it off. It's permanent and it's there for good. However, certain NFTs would allow you to burn them and remove them from the blockchain in an irreversible transaction. I've seen that there's a way to actually turn this off. So is burnable is kind of a variable that can be implemented to make it to where, you can decide whether or not an NFT that you have is burnable. And next, talking a little bit about the protocols that they have, the smart contract protocols, ERC721, ERC1155. Both contain functionalities for viewing how many NFTs are on a specific address, transferring NFTs, and approving transfers. However, ERC1155, which was created by Engine, as we discussed earlier, allows for fungible, non-fungible, and semi-fungible tokens to be present on their blockchain, on their interface. And the semi-fungible token, to kind of explain that a little bit, the idea is like, imagine you have a token that's fungible, like say a coupon that you can transfer around, but then after you use it, it becomes non-fungible. That's kind of where that idea is going towards. And then, of course, both the general ideas for these protocols provided by Open Zeppelin, and we're going to kind of step through that a bit here. So this is Open Zeppelin's ERC721 interface that they provided. These are their functionalities. You got balance of, which just returns how many tokens, how many NFTs the creator of the contract owns, or the address given owns. Owner of, and you provided the ID of an NFT, and it'll tell you who owns the NFT. You've got safe transfer from, which this is the first pass safe transfer from, is essentially just calls this safe transfer from while passing a blank value into the data value here if you don't have any data to pass through. But safe transfer from in general, its purpose is to use the ERC721 receiver interface to specifically pass NFTs into contracts that can hold NFTs. It makes sure that you're only passing the NFT into a contract that can hold NFTs if you're passing into a contract. And then transfer from is just a standard transfer if you're just trying to transfer it from one person to another with that NFT. Approving makes it so that NFT can be transferred to that ID. Basically just preventing, NFTs from being snatched by random people who try and transfer stuff from you. And then get approved gets the addresses of everybody approved to receive said NFT ID. And then set approved for all, you give it an operator, which is a specific wallet address that can't be the owner. And it says approved to true or false. And this operator can essentially move all your NFTs however they want. They're approved for all your NFTs and is approved for all. You give it an owner and an operator, and it tells you if that operator is approved for all the operations for this owner. And then there's supports interface ID. And this is IERC, I believe it's 165. All this one does is it provides a way for the contract to tell if other contracts are implemented. And with this, we can kind of step through the actual GitHub contract that they have a little bit. But here's the constructor. The name and symbol of the collection are passed here for when you make your collection. Supports interface, IERC 165. Just make sure that the ERC721, the metadata for ERC721 interfaces are present. Balance of, make sure that the owner address you passed exists and returns the balance of the owner. This one, you pass an NFT, make sure that the NFT exists, returns the owner. Returns the name and symbol, simple getters. Token URI, which actually you pass it a token ID, it'll pass back the JSON metadata for said token, with base URI kind of being an in-between handler for the blank values, helping to buffer that out. Approve, you pass it, the user, it makes sure that it's not the owner or the operator, or make sure that it's called by the owner or the operator, and make sure that you're not passing it the owner to approve, and then it approves the token for that user to be sent to that user. Get approved, make sure the token exists, then gives the list of everybody approved for that token. Set approval for all, you pass it the operator, when true or false on the approved. Make sure that you're not trying to, approve yourself for the operator. And then changes the operator approved value to that, and emits the event, is approved for all. Just passes whether or not the operator is approved for that owner's operations. Transfer from to. This is kind of the top level one with its own little transfer function here, but it just has the requirement to make sure it's approved or an owner. Safe transfer from. This is the first call. And this is the second call. The first call that passes this little blank bytes data here. And the second call with the bytes data, make sure it's all approved, then calls the smaller safe transfer function here. Exists, this just makes sure it exists, obviously. Is approved or owner. You pass it the spender address here and the token. Make sure the token exists, and just says if the spinner or the owner, or just make sure they're approved to do operations with this token, approved to move this token around. Then smaller safe mint. This one just passes to the other safe mint with also a blank bytes memory data here. And this one takes it and make sure that if you're trying to mint the contract, you are minting it to a contract address that is an ERC721 receiver. Here's the mint functionality that it calls, which just makes sure the address exists and the token ID doesn't already exist. Before token address. Oh yeah, before token transfer here, this is a hook. So you'll see at the bottom it's a blank call. It's just for front end in case you want to do something before token transfer. But it changes the balance, changes the owner, and emits the transfer event. And then here's the burn functionality that they have. It also has the before token transfer hook. And then it clears approvals, changes the balance, or it clears approval for that token, changes the balance of the owner, deletes the token, emits the transfer event. And here's the main transfer function. Make sure that that from is the owner of the token, or make sure that the owner is the transfer. The transfer is the owner of the token. Has its own before token transfer hook. Clears the approvals, changes balance of the sender and the receiver, sets the receiver to be the owner of the token, and emits the transfer event. Then here's the normal approval event. It just sets the approved values to that address and emits it. Then here's check on ERC721 received. So this big function here, all it does is it takes a contract, if it is a contract, and then it makes sure that this contract is using the ERC721 receiver interface. Else it'll revert and send this message, ERC721 transfer to non-ERC721 receiver implementer. And here's the before token transfer hook that we were talking about earlier. Then something else that I actually wanted to look at, which isn't present on OpenZeppelin's functionality, is breeding, which is something that's explicitly and exclusively for now we're going to look at in the CryptoKitties contract. So let me scroll all the way down to where they have the breeding contract. Hold on, I can just control F this. Yeah, contract kitty breeding is kitty ownership. So they have a pregnancy event. Here's the auto birth fee, still $2.50 after the event, after the whole 2017 NFT rush. They have a pregnant kitties counter that keeps track of all the pregnant kitties. And they have something called a gene science interface, which is what they use to calculate, come up with the variable for the child kitten, essentially. So starting up, they have is ready to breed value. It just makes sure that the kitten isn't already siring with somebody else. The kitten isn't already pregnant and that it isn't on cooldown. Check if siring's permitted. It takes the matron and the sire. Make sure that the matron and the sire either have the same owner, or that the sire's owner has allowed the user address to use their sire to mate. Trigger cooldown functionality. It just triggers the cooldown after breeding has been done. Approve siring. You give it an address and the sire that you want to allow to breed or allow to mate with, and it allows them. Set auto birth fee. This can only be called by the COO or the deployer, and it just allows them to change the auto birth fee. It's ready to give birth. Make sure the matron is siring, or that the matron is pregnant, and that they're off cooldown, and it just returns true or false. It's ready to breed. Requires the cat to exist, and returns the is ready to breed value before. Is pregnant. It just returns whether or not that they have a sire. If the sire ID is 0, then they're not pregnant. Else, if they do have a siring ID, then they're pregnant. Is valid mating pair. You give it the matron, the sire, and their IDs. And this one just takes it, and it makes sure that you aren't trying to get the cat to breed with itself. You aren't trying to get the cat to breed with its parents. You aren't trying to get the cat to breed with siblings, and you aren't trying to get the cat to breed with half siblings. And returns true. Can breed via auction. This one just returns a true or false value. It's mostly used when you're checking cats on auction. You give it the matron ID and the sire ID, and it just returns is valid mating pair. Can breed with.
I was good for this. Is this from the same owner, or can multiple owners breed different kitties?
So this one can be from for different kitties. So like this one is apparently used to check breeding via auction. So like it skips ownership and string approval checks on this one.
Okay, so any I can have 2 different kitties as long as they're not related, and so you can have a kitty, I can have a kitty, and we can breed it. Or
yeah, as long as the sire, like if you have a matron and I have a sire, I have to approve for you to use that sire first. You can't just use my sire. But this one is just a checker for if they can breed.
What's a sire versus a matron? Can you explain? I'm not hip to cat talk.
So a matron is like the mom cat, the one that gets pregnant, and the sire is the dad cat.
Oh, okay, makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. And then there's can breed with. They actually have a to-do here. Shouldn't this check pregnancy and cooldowns? I'm not sure when they last updated this contract on their GitHub, but yeah. Just requires the matron and sire to exist. and returns its valid mating pair and its siring permitted functions. And then there's a breed with functionality, which is the actual act of breeding itself. Sets the matron siring with ID, triggers their cooldowns, deletes the allowing addresses for the siring, makes the cat pregnant, and emits the pregnancy event. Then here's breed with auto. This is just for your own matron and sire. So it requires you to send the fee, the auto birthing fee, and requires you to actually own the matron and the sire. Requires you to own the matron at least. Requires siren to be permitted, of course. Storage matron. Requires your matron to be ready to breed. Requires the sire to be ready to breed. And requires them to be a valid mating pair. Then calls the breed with function. And here's give birth. This is where the new cat is made, essentially. Requires the matron to be ready to give birth. Requires the matron birth time to not be or requires the matron to exist here. Sets the sire ID to this, the sire ID value to this. Then gets the parent gen. This is the matron's generation of the mom's genes. Then gets the sire of the father's value. This is the sire generation of the parent's genes. If his are greater than hers, it gives his. And then the child's genes, they run this gene science .mix genes. They finally use the gene science interface to do their own little math gene mixing operation. And then once the new kitten is made, it sets the owner of that kitten, creates that kitten, gives them the genes and everything. Then make sure the matron is no longer pregnant, decreases your pregnant kitties, and then you pay the auto birth fee, and it returns the kitten ID. And yeah, that's the birthing contract or the breeding contract in CryptoKitties. And then there's a few more marketplaces. Like we've already seen Rarible, and we looked at OpenSea a bit. And then this is BakerySwap, which is another exchange that also has its own built-in NFT marketplace. So you can come on here.
And this is on Binance Smart Chain, which is cheaper. Last time I did this, it only cost $6 to mint.
Yeah, it's got its own little NFTs you can come through and purchase. There's Unifty, which I thought I had pulled. Oh yeah, I do have it pulled up. Unifty's right here, which is its own. It's kind of like looks like a Swiss watch type deal, where it has its own liquidity farms and whatnot, and then you can actually create your own markets and farms, and it has an NFT bridge, and you can manage your NFT collections here, as long as it's on some other farms down here.
Well, what's it bridge to? Which is it like cross chains?
It didn't exactly say here, but it says yeah, it doesn't say no bridge. It just says no bridge NFTs found. I'm guessing it bridges between tokens since it still uses ETH regardless. But
can you click down on bridge options real quick? Oh, okay, that makes. Wait, what?
Okay.
Unifty's on all those chains?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know.
XDAI.
Can you
Avalanche.
Can you go to bridge options actually under
Yeah. Deposit gas funds, withdraw gas funds, cancel NFT restore. Well, it's certainly something. So yeah, it looks like you can.
And you can check the logs on Discord. That's how they have it being done. Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Well, that's pretty neat actually. Yeah, I didn't see that.
And BakerySwap, by the way, is a no code. So I think most of these platforms are like a no code way of launching your NFT. Like you don't have to do it, but on the back end, that contract that Ulysses was showing is what they use. So you don't have to code actually if you have NFT. You can use one of these platforms.
Yep. Then there's Air NFTs. Air NFTs is just another exchange. It's not much different from a Rarible or OpenSea or BakerySwap's page. And of course, we looked at Axie Infinity and Gods Unchained. And then there's Lost Relics, which I mentioned earlier in Engine section. So Lost Relics is a free to play, action adventure RPG. it is considered a pay to earn game because when you're playing the game, it actually has loot drops you can get in varying rarities, and these loot drops that you get are actually NFTs that you can sell on their marketplace. I looked at their blockchain items. It's kind of, you can't really see the actual value of the items from what it seems on their marketplace. But yeah, if you want Engine X to on sale from, oh yes you can. This is a 7,999 engine, so this is a $10,000 item right now in this game. Transcendent rarity. Might be able to find it in a drop, probably not easily though. But yeah, that's been NFTs and NFT marketplaces. Here are some learning resources. There's Crypto Zombies, which is it's a way to learn how to write Solidity smart contracts, including NFTs, using a zombie-based game that's very similar to how CryptoKitties works, where they have their own breeding mechanism to look through. Then there's Open Zeppelin. Open Zeppelin is what we were looking at earlier. They have ERC721 contract interface to look at and their own code up on GitHub that people like to use. And they also provide other interfaces. You know, they have their own ERC20 and other ERC interfaces as well. There's DApp University. This is a guy on YouTube. He actually makes a lot of useful videos, and I think he has currently either the best or the most popular create your own NFT minting system video that's out right now. Ethereum's website actually has a page on NFTs. Same for Investopedia that both give some good information, and of course there's the CryptoKitties Contract. After this, I'll be posting all of these in the proper voice channel or the proper channels in the Discord. So any questions?
One question that I have is about the standards. Because you mentioned the 1155 and ERC 721. One thing I know we've been discussing is you could look up the various ERC standards. There's also the idea of badges as well that I think is underexplored for reputation systems. But I was kind of wanted to kind of more in depth go between the different standards and kind of understanding the different use cases, because some of us might be using NFT just because that's what we know other than a token. Yeah, I just want to kind of explore that more in depth between the different standards, or pull some documentation regarding that.
All right, yeah. So for now, I've only really looked at ERC 721 and somewhat ERC 1155. But from what it seems, ERC 721 is just, you know, business people. Maybe you just want to mint real estate contracts. Maybe you just want to mint art, like what Rarible is doing here and what OpenSea is doing. But then I think 1155 would be if you just want your own like full-on economy. So like what we've seen with Engine system, where Engine has their own currency, but then they also have their own NFT system that is usable with that currency. They've used ERC 1155 to create, you know, their own world where you can have these games with their own items, like Lost Relics, that you can trade for. Engine, and I believe Engine also, like Immutable X, doesn't have issues with gas fees. Like they also have lighter or no gas fees in terms of their transactions between in their marketplaces. So I believe for now that's the primary difference, and then, you know, semi-fungible tokens, the transition from an ERC20 to an NFT. They stated for coupons and like contract tickets, so I'm guessing the semi-fungibility is just so you can transfer it around before it's used, and then after it is used, it becomes a useless NFT. So it's more just a way to add scarcity to stuff without, you know, going full NFT type scarcity, I believe. But other than that, I can't. If there are other NFT protocols, I haven't looked at them quite yet, but I'd be willing to set aside some time for that. Are there any other questions? No. Then I guess with that, that's the end of my presentation. Glad for everybody who came here. And after this, I'll be posting the resources from the previous section into the proper channels on the Discord. Thanks, everybody.